My name is Hannah Harley-Young, a society and portrait photographer from London, and I love food. Coming from a Persian English background, food has played a pivotal part in my life. When I'm not behind the camera, I'm eating, cooking, sampling, researching, #food porning, and appreciating the different cuisines on offer around the city. Welcome to Crazy Sexy Food. With over 176 million tagged posts on Instagram alone, #food porn is a thing. Whether it be a slice of thick crust pizza oozing with melted cheese or overfilled tacos with juicy meat and salsa, we're interested in not just the food fads and what's popular, but the beautiful humans that are making this wonderful food. Today we're at Camden Market on a particularly sunny day in June, which is pretty good for London. I am here today to talk about my favourite subject ever, which is food. I want to know all about pop-ups, the power of the pop-up, which is something that's quite new over the past few years. On this particular episode, I'm going to be interviewing a guy who owned a restaurant, then shut it down and set up a food stall, and then we're going to be talking to a huge success story from the pop-up food stall world, Joe from Patty Bun. Come and join me on this very exciting journey. Way before it became one of the most famous markets in London, the Camden Market we know now kicked open its doors to traders in 1974. Known during these days solely as an arts, crafts and antiques market, it's hard to believe there were only 16 stalls. Fast forward a couple decades and the music scene really took off in the area, particularly the punk scene. One of its biggest homegrown talents was international superstar Amy Winehouse, who came from the area. She was the epitome of what Camden's music scene stood for. Her sudden loss left a huge hole in the music world. The area has had its fair share of other ups and downs. In 1993, the IRA bombed the high street. This was followed by various fires in 2008 and as recently as 2017. Not only are there an array of sights and sounds, but you can really find anything in Camden, and I mean anything. It's now home to hundreds of small businesses, but today I'm interested in its culinary delights. Woo! So much choice. Get me some goddamn food. It doesn't surprise me what a diverse selection of street food the market has to offer. Indian-inspired burgers, vegan donuts, Lebanese street food, and even a haggis burger to tickle your taste buds. But in my hunt to find my first victim, I have spied one of my favourite dishes of all time, cheese wheel pasta. This stall makes fresh pasta all day long, come rain or shine. It was refreshing to see fresh produce being made roadside. Linguine and spaghetti made by hand to be soon matched with its perfect partner, the cheese wheel. The hot, steaming pasta is poured into the parmesan and mixed around to create a creamy, melted, cheesy mess of a sauce. These wheels are aged for a minimum of 1 year, can weigh up to 40 kilos and cost hundreds if not thousands of pounds depending on the age. I'm told the cheese wheel lasts 2 weeks. If I lived any closer, it'd be 2 days. And the verdict? I am speechless. It's heaven on earth. I want to get down to the nitty-gritty. What made a burger pop-up become one of the UK's most successful burger joints? And why did a Michelin star chef turn his back on the restaurant world to set up a street food stall? From Camden, I make my way to Curb, the street food market in the newly developed King's Cross area. I got the chance to sit down with Tristan Li Son, the man behind Bian Dang, a Taiwanese street food stall. Tristan's story is unique. I want to find out how a man from South Africa who grew up during apartheid found his way to London to be trained under a Michelin-starred chef and then walked away from the restaurant world to set up a street food stall. As I sit down with Tristan, he opens up to me about the incredibly troubled time he experienced in South Africa during the apartheid.
I also grew up in the middle of the Free State, which was predominantly white.
Okay.
So we were the first Chinese South Africans in that state, which was also, we were like tourist attraction. Mm-hmm. People used to come and just look at us, just like they couldn't believe that they were Chinese. Really? Yeah, so it was very strange. Of course, there was a lot of racism. Of course, there was a lot of bullying on my side. But, you know, it only made me a stronger person. When I got to London, no one expected what would happen.
Britain's big banks under sustained attack on the markets. As we go on air, there are crisis talks about how to stabilise the banking system.
You then opened up a restaurant?
Because rents are cheap. And it was cheap. Plunged a whole lot of money into it, about £130,000. That wasn't enough.
So when did you unfortunately decide to call it quits?
After 3 years of battling through it, a lot of arguing. When I left Ladudu, it was heartbreaking. I went into a state of depression, a grey area. My wife tried to really push me out of it.
But the person that got you your drive back was obviously the one and only Jason Atherton.
Yeah. I never worked harder in my life than I worked with Jason, I can say that. Even owning my own restaurant, when I joined Jason, it was, this is how you should own a restaurant. When you start a restaurant, you work 7 days a week. And you're in at 6:30 in the morning, you're out at 12 o'clock. You know, we were doing 18-hour shifts. Saturdays we were doing 26-hour shifts. You know, it was crazy, some of the things.
Why did you decide to leave Jason?
2 years of 120-hour weeks. It was very, very stressful. My wife was basically, my girlfriend was still at that time, was basically saying, look, we can't live like this, I can't live.
I don't see you anymore.
Yeah. People don't understand why, you know, Gordon Ramsay is so...
What is that? What is that? What is that? Fuck off, will you?
I want being Asian and big menus, I wanted to create something that everyone could have. The traditional Bian Dang is a pork chop. Not many people eat pork, unfortunately, in London. So I created a chicken version of that. And then I wanted a vegetarian version. And it took me months to find a good vegetarian option. I just wanted something different, something that would excite people. And I settled on oyster mushrooms, and that was my pivotal point, turning moment. I love oyster mushrooms. They're fleshy, they're flavoursome, and they fry nicely. When we expanded in 2016, Curb was offered Camden. Total disaster. I was the lowest trading person. On the markets, on the lunchtime markets with Curb, I'm one of the highest traders. But at Camden, I'm the lowest trading trader. It is a great thing to go through as well, because you see the differences in what people are looking for at specific places. Camden is very touristy. Camden's main population is Spanish and Italians, French, and they want lighter meal.
If you could go back again and do it all, what advice would you give yourself?
I look back at it all the time and just say how grateful I am about those years. I said it to my wife, if I had the experience that I had with Jason when I first started out, I would have been in a totally different place.
And so now there's only one thing left to do: try the food. The pork is not heavy at all, which was what I was a little bit concerned about. I'd happily order this again, but the oyster mushrooms were unbelievably light and succulent. The Taiwanese pickles were fresh and delicate, and the tea-stained egg was delicious. You could actually taste a slight smokiness from the tea. But for me, the absolute winner was the chili sauce. It was unreal. It's actually quite smoky. It's not super hot chili. It's quite a deep taste. Really delicious. And really complements the meat. From east to west, I make my way to the infamous area of Notting Hill. Yes, the place where that film was made. I got to sit down with Joe Grossman, the man behind the dirtiest, sexiest burger chain in London, Patty Bun. I wanted to find out how a young kid from West London, who packed in his city banker job, managed to create such a successful business from a small pop-up in Soho. He never set out to get into the food business.
Not a professional chef, didn't have like years experience in XYZ. I just had like a vision and a stubbornness. I want to do my own thing, like specifically like a burger joint. Obviously New York was like the place to go and, should we say, do the pilgrimage.
When you came back to London and you decided that you were 100% going to go into this,
I was 90% naive, didn't have a clue, 10% hoped that it would work out. Sort of was coming back from New York with these sort of grand aspirations of, you know, getting a site in the centre of Soho and raising loads of money, and basically just, you know, I thought at that point I could just go from A to Z without anything in between.
where did you open up
And the first store was in my mind at this point,
okay.
complete.
Yeah.
I had like this imaginary, you know, idea that was, you know, and I had this pathetic like business plan. It was absolute comedy, no, it's fucking burnt.
It's nice, as you mentioned, it's nice to have that naivety, because
Yeah,
I think had you have known,
I know, I wouldn't,
you probably
wouldn't have got it off the ground,
no.
I think. And that naivety was, that was the key.
In terms of your produce, so I know that you get your meat from H.G.
Walter.
Walter.
Big up! Big up HG.
Pow, pow.
Yeah.
And you get your breads, your buns from Bread
Ahead,
Ahead, which I love, by the way.
Yeah, they're great. We do a bespoke
And
little
I
bun.
don't know where
Matty
you
boy.
get your dairy from, but whatever.
Can't give all.
Yeah,
can't
exactly,
give all the little tricks in trade.
How important was that for you? I mean, you know, you sort of have this idea that you've got this amazing burger. You know what you like. You know what you don't like. I mean, did you literally have to create 50
I mean, that
different
was
patties
that's the spine of like everything we do. That's like literally like the nucleus is the burger, and so I had this clear vision of, you know, wanting, you know, as much, you know, British produce and being as much like, you know, provenance of all, you know, every single product we do, and it's sort of the best of British and basically no substitute of quality. So it wasn't about, you know, just trying to whip something together and thinking it's, you know, 8 out of 10. We were trying, and we still are every single day, to try and produce the best product we can possibly do. And I went round loads of butchers, all, you know, had like great meat and everything like this, but I just walked into H.G. Walter and I got chatting to Adam, who runs it with the family. And we just sort of clicked, and I was just like, and he was like, who's this absolute lunatic coming in at like, you know, Tuesday, 3 o'clock? And we just sort of clicked, and he really sort of bought into sort of the vision of what we wanted to do with the menu and sort of the brand and everything like that. And he helped me basically alongside sort of create the entire menu. And then we sort of went to HG and put together this super sexy blend of you know, a patty that I think, you know, it's subjective. Everyone likes their own sort of burgers, but I think they're good. And there's a lot of fat in them, and which gives a lot of flavour, and there's a lot of aged meat, and then we jam a lot of salt on, just to lift that flavour. And the mindset is we're trying to do a few things, and we're trying to smash them out of the park every single time, because at the end of the day, you know, you're feeding people. It's like, you know, the most important thing. You couldn't just go and, you know, just get a lease. You know, you need a lot of money now to start a restaurant. It's super hard. So people were having to be a lot more creative in terms of the way that they, you know, if you had a good idea about a brand you wanted to launch or like a product, how are you going to get it out there without, you know, just going down the standard routes? And I think when you combine that with like people that are passionate and like fucking love to like, you know, serve this product that they've worked really hard to get out there, and then you combine that with just an energy and something that's sort of quite cult and underground. I think people just grabbed hold of that, combined with social media, and it's sort of like, you know, it's sort of the power of like word of mouth, because, you know, you're doing a pop-up in the middle of fucking nowhere.
I think also a sign of our times with social media, you know, I think it's this whole word of mouth has become
bonkers.
Is just
bonkers.
It's
nuts.
So easy in a way. I mean, it's still so challenging, but it's still so easy to be able to spread the word about your brand.
You know, there was just this great energy and enthusiasm of like everyone just going wild. And I think once you had that, then you had some momentum to really sort of use that as a platform to kick on.
Always wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Where the names come from? Why the Ari Gold?
Shit, you might make me cry. You might make me cry now. You might.
I mean, obviously the best
Ari Gold.
character.
Yeah,
ever.
you know.
Of course.
Yeah. Entourage.
Come on.
Bam. Jeremy Piven's been in a couple of times actually.
You've answered my question.
Yeah, bam.
Has he
Bit
had,
of a lunatic.
Has he had his Ari
yeah, he's
Gold?
munched it. He was reading his lines for Mr. Selfridge while munching it.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it's punchy. But and he loved it. But so at the time I was like, the mindset was, and this is seriously basic, when I think of burgers, the inspiration point was America. When I think of America, I just thought like Entourage is like the thing I think, and then we need to get Lloyd.
Yeah. Things weren't always plain sailing for Joe. With the confidence and belief came bouts of insecurities and doubt. He admits he had no idea what he was doing, but through perseverance and learning from mistakes, got him to where he is today.
I went through some pretty sort of desperately isolated, where you're like, shit, am I going to get this off the ground? Like, or like, Jesus, like, is there, am I going to get the restaurant off the ground, or is it going to take off, or, all these like ifs and buts and the whole way. And like I said, massively naive, but I think as long as you're just sort of learning as you go, and I think making mistakes is banging. That's what it's all about. Because I mean, if you're not making mistakes, you're not really learning. But like the mindset is, we're trying to sort of get a Michelin star. Yeah. Yes. Obviously, we're not going to get it.
What advice would you give to yourself back in 2011, 2012, when you were sort of really kickstarting everything off?
Good question. That's a good question. I would say, just don't listen to the haters. Yeah. Just do not listen to anyone. If you think you've got, if you think you're onto something, you're always going to get people that are just going to shit on your parade. Absolutely. So just go 110% full throttle. And if it doesn't work out, at least you said that you've given it 110%. But if it does work out, you can go back to them and just basically be like, see you later.
And now there's only one thing left to do. To try out the infamous burger. Eaten like the true flexitarian that I am. Vegetarians, I hear you shouting at me. Shut up! I'm busy with Ari. And so we've come to the end of our journey. We've eaten, sampled and devoured our way through the pop-up and street food markets around London. And we've learned a lot of lessons along the way. The popularity of these pop-ups for business owners is that it allows them the flexibility to set up, and if things go to pot, they don't really hit that financial burden as bad as if they set up a restaurant. And as we saw with Tristan and Joe's unique stories, they both carved their own journeys. We have Tristan, who gave up working 120-hour shifts a week because he just couldn't sustain that kind of life with a family. And so set up a street food stall selling Taiwanese food. And Joe, who had to overcome his anxieties and naivety and really, really believed in himself. And now Patty Bun is all over the country with aspirations to open up globally. And so I leave you with a few little words of inspiration. Make mistakes, make them often. Be brave, be smart, with a little bit of naivety. And as the wise man above once said, nothing extraordinary came from being ordinary. Now, I'm still hungry. Don't ask me how. I gotta go get something to eat. I'll see you guys later.